Buenos días, Mark. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you,
How
Chamala.
is everything? Long time. Mark is a practitioner and researcher of ancestral knowledge and ancestral healing techniques. So I'm going to say in Spanish now. Mark es un practicante y un investigador del conocimiento ancestral y de las técnicas ancestrales de curación. Y hoy está aquí con nosotros para mostrarnos su trabajo, para explicarnos lo que hace y para también explicarnos de qué manera su trabajo impacta en los demás. Would you like me to say this in English or you say in English, Mark? What do you think?
I heard you say that you repeated what you said in Spanish, and then you said I'm here to let you know about my work, show you a little bit about my work, tell you a little bit about my work and how this work impacts other people. Yeah. So
I would like to explain how I met Mark. About 15 years ago, thanks to Mark, I was introduced to the psychedelic techniques of healing. Thanks to Mark and his wife, Erika, from Peru, from the land of the chamans. Bueno, it's many lands of chamans around the world, in every continent, but specifically, we did the technique, the ceremony, the ayahuasca ceremony, and thanks to this ceremony, actually it was a beginning and an after in my life. So, yeah, que estaba explicando que gracias a Mark, que conocí a Mark hace unos 15 años, y que gracias a Mark y a su esposa, Erika, de Perú, Mark es de Edimburgo, pero me gusta enfatizar lo de Perú, porque como Perú es lo de la ayahuasca y todo, pues gracias a ellos hice la técnica psicodélica de curación y la ceremonia de ayahuasca. Y ellos han seguido trabajando y desde antes trabajaron en este sector, en este ámbito de la curación y de la expansión y del crecimiento y eso y también trabajamos juntos. Fuimos compañeros de trabajo para el Ayuntamiento de Edimburgo. We work together in the Edinburgh Council too. So yeah, amazing people, transparent people, people who you can trust to work with. And yes, so I wrote some questions for Mark. Sí, estaba diciendo que Mark es una persona en la que pueden confiar. Yo pongo mis manos en el fuego por Mark y su esposa a la hora de trabajar con ellos. Y su trabajo ha impactado también en muchas personas. Fuimos compañeros de trabajo para el Ayuntamiento de Edimburgo. Trabajamos juntos. Y sí, la verdad es que si alguien los necesita, los recomiendo al 100% porque sé que va a funcionar y no tengo ninguna duda sobre ello. Así es. So, estaba también diciendo que había escrito unas preguntitas para hacérselas a Mark y a su esposa. Bueno, su esposa no está aquí hoy porque tenía cosas que hacer, pero bueno, Mark, he can answer everything.
yeah.
So let's start with the first question. So everybody can know better what Mark and his wife are doing. So definitely after a session of ayahuasca, after a ceremony of ayahuasca or a healing technique practice, definitely people feel better. So how you can explain in which way? Definitely I have the experience, my own experience, but because you have been through everything, you can explain better in which way your work impacts in the well-being of people?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm just wondering if maybe to provide some juice and inspiration for this answer, you could share first how it impacted you, and then I can expand on that, because how it impacted you is just one way of many different ways that, and everybody is an individual and unique unto themselves. Their own journey of life is unique unto themselves, and so uh, over the years, we've experienced different types of people being impacted in different ways with what we do. But I would love to hear how you were impacted, and then I can expand on that, if that's okay.
Thank you. Pues justo le pregunté a Mark de qué manera su trabajo impacta en los demás y Mark me ha contestado que primero hablo yo sobre mi propia experiencia y voy a explicar que cuando hice la ceremonia de ayahuasca, para mí fue un viaje a través de mi vida en la que pude deshacer nudos energéticos que tenía, nudos en el alma, los pude deshacer, pude encontrar muchas respuestas, pude conocer cuánto poder tenía, refianzar mi propia confianza en mí misma y también obtuve mucha claridad mental, mucha claridad mental. Seguidamente, después de esa ceremonia, fuimos a una sesión de chamanismo y también encontramos los animales, los espíritus animales con los que estábamos conectados, sí, y también fue grandioso. Ahora lo voy a explicar en inglés. So Mark asked me, I asked Mark about his work, how his work impacts on the well-being of people. And Mark let me the opportunity to explain my experience first, no? So I just say that for me, the experience was amazing. It gave me a lot of mental clarity at the time to take decisions, at the time to know where to go, what to do. Also, I felt like a lot of blockage of my spirits, energetic blockage were unmade. So also I did a journey through my all world life experience, through the most important events. So it was a new beginning for me, actually. It was a new beginning. So after that ceremony, we went to a shamanism event where we also connect with the spirit animals, our own spirit animal, and it was also amazing with the shamanic drum. So yes, it was just, I recommend it to anyone it's just wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for sharing this. And of course, so this we have you have identified and spoken into two different areas of work. They are very complementary, but they are also separate and different. And one can be used to highly complement the other. So with ayahuasca healing, what can happen, exactly what you said, actually. I mean, this is really the epitome of what ayahuasca healing does. It's to undo the energetic knots in your way of thinking. It's to decalcify calcified neural pathways that keep you stuck in fixed ways of thinking, to decalcify and loosen up those neural pathways, which have become calcified through a lifetime of conditioning, past traumas, trauma imprints. These are what make, I'm sure your viewers probably know and have an interest in the nature of trauma, but it can make us become stuck. It's like, trauma it happens when our feeling of safety is removed, and when our feeling of safety is removed, our feeling of fear can rise. And when when that feeling of fear comes, and of course this is not the only type of trauma, I'm sure we all know, but with this type of trauma where safety is quickly removed, um, and fear is quickly instilled, it can create shock, you know. And when we create this level of like shock or fright or fear, it can make us become stuck. And so every time there is uh, uh, a situation or a scenario in our life that appears that is similar in energy and expression to that which gave us the trauma in the first place, we repeat the same patterns, or we are just filled with fear and anxiety of those types of situations that have similar energy and expression to that scene or scenario that caused the trauma in the first place. And so we become stuck in this cycle. We can become stuck in uh, thought loops and thought cycles, going around in, self-sabotage, guilt, shame, anxiety, self-sabotage, guilt, shame,
Mm,
anxiety.
mm,
We can move into these cycles because we are unable to bring ourselves to break the fear that would help us move into a different scene or scenario or situation or expression of ourselves. And ayahuasca does exactly that. It targets those uh, the calcified neural pathways that cause this type of thinking, and breaks it down, loosens it up, and allows for new imprints to happen through visions, through uh, visceral experiences. Um, and some of these visceral experiences, um, in order to actually have a real, um, lasting, sustainable effect in our lives, they often need to be digested and made sense of and understood fully. And this is where the shamanic drumming practice can come in as a complement, because we can use the shamanic drumming journey to connect, of course, with your power animal, with your animal spirits. The From a shamanic perspective, we all have, elemental and animal spirits that are, and plant spirits, nature spirits that are accompanying us and helping us in our life. And so we connect with one of them to help us to journey back into the ayahuasca experience that needs to be made sense of, that needs to be like, oh, I don't quite understand this, so how can I better understand it? Through the journey, we can go back in to the ayahuasca experience to allow ourselves to make sense from this deep subconscious spiritual state and plane of consciousness, to be able to piece together the puzzle more. And this process is called integration, where you integrate the
mm.
experiences from the ayahuasca. So yeah, this is kind of again one way, or maybe a couple of ways that ayahuasca can impact people. That's the core way, I think. But really, there are many other ways. And just quickly before I finish answering this one, I will say that, I we worked with a woman who, and hey, well, let me just say the disclaimer that this is not a medical claim or medical advice or, anything of the sorts. And people should always consult with their medical physicians and whatever the professionals in the field before they go and adventure down these pathways, these healing pathways. Um, but yeah, we had a woman who had like uh, lower back issues with her lower back, which made her
Mhm.
legs numb, completely numb. Like, and she couldn't feel her legs, and she wasn't able to exercise properly. And my first maestro, my first onanya in the Shipibo language, the master healer from the Shipibo tribe in the Amazon jungle, he said to me, the act of ceremony, the ayahuasca ceremony, is like es como una ventanilla mágica. dentro de la cual cualquier cosa puede pasar. Hay que utilizarla y sacar ventaja de ella. Meaning, the ayahuasca ceremony is like a magic window of time and space, inside which anything can happen. So use it to your advantage. And I think this pays testimony to this woman because, you know, once she came to the medicine ceremonies, within like 2 3 weeks, she began to recuperate the feeling in her legs.
I believe it. I believe it. Mm.
Yeah, and now she is fully functioning and she can go and she cycles. She likes to cycle. She likes to swim in the sea now as well.
Mm.
So yeah,
I would like to say why I believe it, but first I would like to ask you if please you can explain this in Spanish, or you want me to do it, or you can explain it in Spanish. So
I
the
would
people
like
who
you to
also
do it.
watch the videos in Spanish, they can also be able to understand your work and be able also, si lo explicas en español, las personas que ven los vídeos y que hablan en español, pues pueden entender tu trabajo, se pueden poner en contacto contigo,
Yeah.
si quieren mejorar sus vidas. Y
Okay,
por favor, si lo
lo
puedes.
hacemos juntos, lo hacemos juntos. Tú
Vale, sí,
empiezas y
vale.
complementamos.
Pues Mark estaba explicando que exactamente lo que yo había dicho, que la ceremonia de ayahuasca permite a las personas salir de esos ciclos de comportamiento con uno mismo en los que pues pasamos pues de la vergüenza a la culpa, al sabotaje, al autosabotaje, el miedo que nos obstaculiza a la hora de tomar cualquier paso o de empezar cualquier iniciativa en nuestra vida. Y que a su vez eso también se refleja en la interacción con los demás, porque nosotros expulsamos lo que somos. Entonces, pues va como en una cadena y que la ceremonia de ayahuasca pues es una pequeña ventana que permite a ti solucionar lo que te es una pequeña ventana mágica para ti, para remover esos obstáculos y solucionar esos ciclos o esas causas pendientes o esos traumas o dolores que no te dejan avanzar, ¿no? Y que él también ha explicado el caso de una señora pues que no podía caminar, no funcionaba bien su cuerpo y que gracias a estas ceremonias pues pudo hacerlo y yo creo amar, ¿por qué? Porque hay un tipo de depresión que es la depresión enmascarada, que la tengo que también que tratar en los vídeos, que es una depresión que puede pasar años sin diagnosticarse porque la persona piensa que simplemente su vida ha cambiado o porque está envejeciendo o porque ya no es un niño nunca más o un joven o porque simplemente su vida cambia y no, y simplemente no es así y está relacionada con dolores, con
Nice.
los músculos se engarrotan, está relacionada con pensamientos negativos y todo eso, claro, el cuerpo pues lo digiere de esa manera. I was telling Mark that about the case of the lady who he was explaining that I believe it's because it's a kind of masked depression that people, it can be years until people realize or they are diagnosed that they have this and it's related with stuffy muscles, pains, negative thinking, sadness, and sometimes people just thinking, "No, I'm getting old, I'm lonely now because I'm getting old, I'm not the same as before, I'm not a child anymore, I cannot have the same energy." But no, it can be this kind of depression, no?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
if you like to
yeah.
say something else in Spanish about that, so I can go
Mm.
to the next question. Sorry, Mark. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. No, está bien, ahí vamos fluyendo, ahí vamos fluyendo. Me gustó tu interpretación y solo repetir que lo que has dicho de la ventanilla mágica, ¿no? Ah, es lo que me dijo el primer profesor, eh, porque tengo una red bastante amplia en la selva amazónica entre diferentes pueblos de curanderos y he trabajado con varios, ¿no? Pero comencé con una familia y eh, entonces el primer profesor de la primera familia con la que trabajé fueron las palabras de él. Él me dijo, la ceremonia de ayahuasca es una ventanilla mágica dentro de la cual cualquier cosa puede pasar, ¿no? Y claro, uno mira la ciencia, digamos la ciencia cuántica, que revela la naturaleza cuántica del entorno en el que vivimos, de la vida,
del
y
universo.
ves que hay tanto rezo, hay tanta carga, hay tanto enfoque de energía, intención, rezo, ¿no? Que se canaliza y se enfoca, se acumula en su enfoque, en enfocarse en lo que es la liberación de las energías, la liberación de la mente, del alma, del espíritu. Y entonces, desde una perspectiva cuántica, por así decirlo, o sea, la física cuántica, las ciencias cuánticas muestran que si tú pones una carga de intención y atención en algo, vas a mover masa, vas a mover algo, ¿no? So
Definitivamente.
yeah, I'll say that in English as well. Like, what my maestro, my first, so I have a quite a you know substantial network of different traditional healers across different tribes in the Amazon jungle, and I've worked with a number of different families. But I started with one family, and so my first teacher from that family, he was the one who said this thing about the magic window inside which anything can happen. Um, and when you look at it from when you look at this from when you consider quantum sciences and what quantum sciences teach about the nature of existence, you can see the truth in it, because that ceremony, inside that ceremony, it is like an accumulation of prayers and intentions and desires, and all of this energy that is accumulated in the focus of liberating energies and liberating minds and souls. And yeah, and so when you think from the perspective of the quantum sciences say that when you put your intention and attention on something intensely, then you will move with the power of those intentions and prayers and attention. You will move. You will move things. You will move energy. And so it makes sense, because the ayahuasca ceremony is this. It is like you have spent 2 weeks on a restricted diet, focusing all of your energy on healing. And then you come into the ceremony, which is even more charged, where everybody in the ceremony all has the same intention of healing and moving energy positively. So it's like a quantum
Yeah,
critical mass that comes together to move
yeah.
energy.
Like a stream too, like you cannot fight against it. Like
Yes,
it will take you.
yes,
Yeah. Mark estaba explicando que sí, que la ceremonia de ayahuasca lleva una dieta 2 semanas antes de que tenga lugar para limpiar el cuerpo, para prepararse, y que por supuesto está muy relacionado todo lo que pasa ahí con la física cuántica, porque la atención y la intención nos lleva a mover la realidad, a mover nuestra existencia, a modificar la existencia. Y eso también se explica desde la psicología con la perspectiva temporal futuro, porque somos nosotros los que construimos el futuro, ¿no? A través de la intención, de la atención, de esa visión. Y claro, ahí se intensifica mucho más durante la ceremonia de ayahuasca, porque estás con otras personas que van hacia también con ese objetivo, ¿no? Y definitivamente es muy poderosa la ceremonia de ayahuasca, sí, sí lo es. Y hablando de esta red de curanderos, de todo el tiempo que ya llevas trabajando en este campo, porque cuando yo te conocí hace 15 años, tú ya eras un iniciado. Cuando yo ya te conocí, tú ya eras un iniciado. Tú ya conocías muchas cosas que para mí eran nuevas. Yo estaba simplemente poniendo un pie. Y me gustaría que hablaras un poco de tu trayectoria profesional, o sí, eres un profesional ya, porque ya casi 20 años casi ya que llevas. Y háblanos un poco de cómo has trabajado, de cómo te sientes, cuáles son tus objetivos o cómo ha sido porque he visto fotos tuyas en Facebook que has estado en Perú, en el Amazonas, trabajando, no has parado, la verdad es que no has parado y ¿nos puedes hablar un poco de eso?
Y escucharte me emociona un poco, me saco las gafas porque siento que tal vez me quieran salir un par de lagrimitas de escucharte.
Oh.
Porque sí, ¡guau! Sí, me has tocado un poco con tus palabras. Es cierto, es tan cierto, es tan cierto, uh, um, so yeah, I think now I will just say that Chamaida was do you prefer Chamaida or Chami or whatever?
Now, ahora Igyot.
Ikjot. Okay, so Ikjot.
Bueno.
Okay, Ikjot. Chami. I met her, and 15 years ago, and it was Chamaida, and then more recently I was calling her Chami. So now Ikjot. All right. Um, yeah. So as was being asked, yeah, she said, like, yeah, she met me 15 years ago, and when she met me 15 years ago, I was already initiated on this path. Um, and I was like showing her like knowledge of things that it was all new for her. She was only just dipping her toes in the waters at that time. Um, and um, and she's seen on social media, over the years, like she's seen photos of me in the Amazon jungle, working with the tribes. And she said that like she wants me to talk a little bit about my trajectory, my professional trajectory, because she considers me as a professional now for sure, because it's way over 15 years um that I've been doing this, and and she says that I haven't stopped, like I've just continued to be focused on the development of this. And well, I was saying that I had to take off my glasses, because when I heard her say this, I could feel tears coming to my eyes. I felt quite emotional just listening to that, because it's so true. It's true, like um yeah, it's been a long journey. And I have been very very dedicated from like my late teens, my teens, to the development of my knowledge of this field. And more than it's difficult to consider this word like professional. Oh, I am a professional. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm a professional, but also professionalism and being a professional, it has this connotation of having qualifications, and going through an institution, an academic institution or an educational institution, to gain qualifications which would then classify me as a professional. And I'm like, I guess, yeah, I am a professional, but this ancestral knowledge, it doesn't have an institution to learn, like, so yeah, I'm a professional, cool. But I also, when I heard you speak in this word, I am a professional. Tell us about the trajectory of your professional path. I was like, inside of me, I'm like, the path of my dharma, the path of my life's work, the path of my contribution to earth and society in these times, the trajectory of that path, the path of my life's work, and the path of my dharma, my purpose. Because I really feel that this is my purpose. Yeah. And so I will say that, I mean, you know um there are many layers to my work, many 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 layers. One is that now, more than ever, the world is waking up to the magic of psychedelic healing and ancestral wisdom. And I see myself that like, if when you met me, Idiot, right, if you when you met me, there was a fire burning, and I'm tending to this fire, keeping it alive, and I'm inviting you to the fire. And I'm saying, let's share this fire. Let me teach you about this fire. Let's, You know,
Mm.
let's teach each other around this fire. If that fire was burning then, now at this point in time, it's burning brighter than ever
Mhm.
because the world has woken up to the magic of psychedelics and ancestral wisdom, and there are so many interests. There are, industrial interests, institutional interests, governmental interests in all of it, and
Mhm.
and
Mm.
and so this makes my fire burn bright because I'm like, I have to put my flag in the ground here and speak what for me is important in this space, which is that we do not institutionalize, we do not governmentalize, we do not medicalize, uh, we do not, yeah, uh, industrialize this whole thing. Industrialization is kind of inevitable given the fact that the world that we live in, which is based on one, the monetary system, and then two, the market-based economic paradigm. Okay, so which is based on industry. We need industries to feed that. Um, so it's kind of inevitable, but the institutionalization is avoidable or is able to happen in ways that are ethical, responsible, and have integrity. Um, and just because it becomes institutionalized doesn't necessarily mean it has to become governmentalized. You know, if the governments have to have a little bit of a say and in certain things for regulations and blah blah blah. But anyway, to answer your question, my whole path has led me to this position now where I'm helping
Mm.
other psychedelic leaders, other ancestral wisdom teachers, leaders, practitioners. I'm helping them to make sure their practice is developing in ways that take care of the indigenous populations, in ways that are rooted in the ethics of caring for people, the ethics of holding space for people, so that we create a community of practitioners that is competent and professional and safe and ethical, because if the community is empowered with these qualities, then the community has the confidence and the security and the conviction to speak in spaces with institutions, in spaces with governments, so that they can keep the power, so that the power remains with the community and not with the governments and the institutions. Okay, the institutions can have their piece, the governments can have their say, but the community needs to be solid and excellent for
Mm.
for this to stay in the right hand, for the power to remain in the right hands, and for this psychedelic healing industry to develop in ways that include the voices of the indigenous population who have carried these medicines forward for thousands of years, like from the beginning of time, we can't take it away from them. We can't take it
Exactly.
away from them. So this is my work now, and how I arrived here is, like well into, my second decade of uh, first developing myself and learning and, traveling the world. I traveled all around the world, immersing
Mm.
myself in indigenous cultures, marrying an indigenous Peruvian, um, and studying and
Sí.
researching, and then continuing to practice, But then also when I became a father at the age of 24, all of my traumas and conditioning kicked in around providing and, all of this stuff. And I got a bit confused with life, and I went on a bit of a different path for a while, and I began to really suffer myself. And so the suffering and the pain and the suicidal ideation and everything was being lived in my body and in my flesh. And when this happened, uh, together with some, slightly more recent experiences of like troubled psychology and troubled emotional world, this brought me really all of these,
Back.
yes, all of
Mm,
these problems brought me back to this path that has always been my path, but I just kind of got lost a little bit along the way because
mm,
it is supposed to be. I can't help other people to heal the depths of their emotions and empower themselves and create lives that they enjoy and are proud of without being able to build truly embodied empathy of their pain and suffering. And the only way to build embodied empathy is to be able to experience all that pain and disgusting
mhm,
suffering,
mhm.
in the flesh. Um,
Yes, definitely. Lo voy a explicar en español. I'm going to explain in Spanish. So, Mark nos estaba hablando de su trayectoria profesional, pero él también deja en entredicho lo de profesional. Más que un profesional, es un maestro, ¿no? Un master of the, por el tiempo que lleva trabajando, por el tiempo, la energía, la dedicación. Pero él también ahora tiene una gran responsabilidad porque cuando yo conocí a Mark hace 15 años, lo de las técnicas psicodélicas de curación o las técnicas centrales de curación eran como un cachito de pan eh, en una gran barbacoa, ¿no? Por decirlo de alguna forma. Y ahora pues parece que está todo el mundo interesado porque se ha descubierto el poder que eso tiene, el poder de curación, y él tiene una gran responsabilidad porque él debe de hacerse cargo. Él es como un puente, ¿no? Entre las civilizaciones ancestrales, de donde sale ese conocimiento, y las civilizaciones modernas. Entonces, para que la civilización ancestral, las tribus, sigan teniendo eso en sus manos, y para que sí, que otras personas puedan hacer uso de eso, de esa técnica, de esa herramienta, pero sin, de manera íntegra, de manera responsable, ética, sostenible y de conciencia, claro, de conciencia colectiva, para que, bueno, yo creo que de todas maneras es muy difícil que ese conocimiento se pueda institucionalizar por completo, porque es como si quisiéramos poner el amor o la creatividad en una lata y comprarla, y eso no se puede hacer, ¿entienden? Eso es parte de la naturaleza humana. Entonces yo creo que I was telling Mark that I think it's very possible that it can be completely institutionalized, because it's like putting creativity in a can and I'm going to the supermarket to buy some creativity, or I'm going to the supermarket to buy some love. It's part of the human nature. So sí, hay cosas que por mucho que se quiera, no se puede, porque va, va unido a una cultura, a una situación geográfica, a un paisaje, a unas plantas, a una interconexión con el ambiente. Entonces, y también Mark estaba diciendo que a veces pues hay que pasar por la oscuridad absoluta y descubrir de qué manera salir de esa oscuridad para poder enseñarle a otras personas cómo hacerlo, ¿no? Y él estaba explicando también que cuando se hizo padre, y yo entiendo por lo que pasó, porque cuando uno se hace padre, pues quiere dar lo mejor a sus hijos y va buscando el camino, no el más fácil, pero el más productivo, quizás el que a lo mejor cueste menos para, pues si tengo que trabajar 12 horas las trabajo, si tengo que trabajar 16 también. Y él, en ese momento que él sintió que estaba más enfocado en el porvenir de su familia, pero menos enfocado en su misión, en su propia misión como curandero, como profesional de las técnicas de curación, él sintió que se desmoronaba su fuerza interior, que psicológicamente él no estaba bien, y por tales motivos tuvo que volver, ¿no? Para curarse a sí mismo y para también, eso creo que estuvo en su camino para poder enseñarle a otras personas cómo hacerlo, ¿no? Sí, muy bien. La verdad es que es un trabajo interesantísimo. La verdad es que La intención de este vídeo es que el trabajo de Mark y de su esposa pues llegue a cuantas más personas posible y que luego las personas pues decidan, ¿no? Si ese es de verdad lo que quieren o no, pero que al menos sepan que eso existe, que si se encuentran mal, si no pueden conseguir lo que quieren, si su vida no cambia, si llevan 15 años, 20 años del trabajo a su casa, si no saben por qué su vida no puede florecer por ningún lado, no pueden encontrar pareja, no pueden florecer económicamente, tienen problemas de relaciones con los demás, se aíslan con una tele, pues que sepan que, pues, que esta es una herramienta que la puede usar cualquiera, que ellos están ahí para aconsejarles, para guiarles en esa trayectoria. Y bueno, creo que tengo otra pregunta para Mark. Y sí, yo creo que la verdad es que lo más importante ya está dicho. Sí, la verdad es que en pocas palabras ya se ha explicado mucho, mucho, mucho se ha explicado. Y bueno, no sé si Mark le gustaría añadir algo más. I was telling Mark if he would like to add something else to finish because you already touched, I think you already touched the most important fundamentals of your work, of why are you here, that people have to know this because many people don't know why their life is stuck, why they keep going from work to home, work from home, isolated with a TV or with a mobile, or and they cannot find a partner, they cannot have a better economic situation, they cannot flourish, because they feel stuck. And so they need to know this exists and that you and your team are there to guide them in this path if they want to choose to use it. So yeah, if you like to add something else, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, no, I think what you just said at the end there, I mean, there's two things that you just said. One, you know, the work of me and my wife. Like we haven't really spoken about my wife, and so I think that probably it's a good idea that you do another interview separately with my wife. You know,
Of course, yes.
and she can also deliver it in English and Spanish as well. She speaks very good English, and of course her mother tongue. Well, one of her two mother tongues is Spanish, but of course she has the indigenous tongue as well, which is Quechua. Um, so there's that, you know, like in combination in combination what's how do I say it again in combination with and in alliance in collaboration with um my wife and her work. um yeah, we're you know we're I'm very proud of the work that we are doing now, and not just the work, but one thing one thing that I find quite a lot of pockets of talking therapies and modern therapies, maybe not in your case, Igjot, but I find a lot of the pockets of psychology, psychotherapy, talking therapy, CBT, um, um, what they miss is something that is integral and core to everything that my wife and me are doing, and that is to build community. Because one of the biggest things, really our belief and the belief that we have found through all of our research, is that one of the core uh, causes of all of this mental health crisis that we have in the modern world today is disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from the natural world, and disconnection from community and from people who are also connecting to themselves and connecting to nature. This is like the core of our essence. And so I'm very proud of the community that my wife and me are building through our family-based business. It's called Native Wisdom Hub. And also you mentioned, I said two parts. One is my wife, and then the other is my team, our team. So we have a team as well. We collaborate with different people. We have team in Peru, we have team in the UK, and in terms of like operations and just making all of the online business work. Some of our team are in Nigeria, some of our team are in England, some of our team are in the Philippines, some of our team are in Australia, and we are just so grateful and so blessed, that we
Mm,
get to rely on this team and work in collaboration with this team, who are all, literate in everything that we do. Um, some are also very, very competent practitioners who can offer this safe, sacred healing space as well. Some of them work with us and we deliver the spaces together. Um, and some of them have a deep understanding of it because they pass through the processes themselves, but they are less in a facilitation role, and they are, working in our social media, or working in our emails, or working on the operations of our business, or working in the finances and accounting. But all of them, they have an understanding and they are part of our community, which is something that I feel really, really, really proud of. And like, yeah, we are here to serve. And anybody that feels like they want to, come and experience this, like, please reach out to us. I think you can get me on Instagram, instagram.com/ Mark John Brown. I think you can leave this in the
yes,
show.
I will leave
Yeah,
all your details and your phone number if you like to,
cool.
so people can reach to Mark and his wife and his team. So yes, I'm going to explain in Spanish, or you like it to explain it yourself? I don't know.
You can do it. I like how we like bounce off of each other.
Sí, Mark estaba explicando que sí, que su esposa ha sido muy importante en la trayectoria profesional, bueno, en la trayectoria de lo que hacen. Los dos se han complementado porque su esposa es de Perú y es indígena, y bueno, y él también, perdón. Ambos hablan español, inglés perfectamente. Luego trabajan con personas de Nigeria, perdón, lo iba a decir en inglés, de Nigeria, de Australia, de Filipinas. Claro, porque el conocimiento ancestral es que está por todo el mundo. Entonces tienen una red global de profesionales y tienen tienen la página web de conocimiento nativo ancestral Hub, Native Window Hub, y después tienen también el Instagram, tienen todo, el Facebook, todas las redes sociales, el Twitter, y vamos a dejar en el vídeo la descripción. Ellos están ahí para quien los necesite, ellos van a estar ahí. Ellos ya les indicarán cuando se pongan en contacto con ellos para hacer la técnica o la ceremonia, lo que necesiten más. Ellos van a estar ahí para guiarlos, para darles toda la información. La verdad es que son personas que las conozco hace mucho tiempo, son personas de confianza. Yo lo hice y se lo recomiendo a todo el mundo que lo haga, porque yo creo que todo el mundo debería hacerlo en algún momento de su vida, no solo para solucionar atascos, sino también porque he estado también leyendo sobre otras cosas, sobre parásitos en el cuerpo, sobre, sí, parásitos que van infectando el cuerpo, van impactando la conducta, en la forma en la que el cuerpo empieza a interactuar con los demás, con sí mismo. Y la ceremonia también es como una limpieza en todos los aspectos, física, espiritual, energética, psicológica, porque ves todo ahí y la verdad es que ah, extraordinario, extraordinario y no sé si me fui por las ramas, perdón. Empecé a
No,
hablar por una cosa y no sé si me he ido por las ramas.
no,
Y
no. Está bien, está muy bien. O sea, estás
gracias.
recomendando desde tu propia experiencia y no hay nada más
Y,
poderoso que eso.
y por eso también entrevistando a Mar, porque yo le puedo decir a otra persona, pero yo no tengo autoridad porque yo no soy una profesional en el campo. Le puedo decir a otra persona sobre mi experiencia, pero por eso quería que Mark viniese y también, por supuesto, su esposa algún día, claro que sí, que la entrevistaré para que ella también nos diga, nos muestre más la esencia de su trabajo. Y ellos también enfatizan mucho la comunidad, el trabajar juntos, el seguir en contacto a lo mejor con las personas con las que han trabajado para seguirles orientándolos en cualquier aspecto. Y la verdad es que sí, que ha sido un placer, la verdad, tenerte aquí. Me gustaría también que Erika hubiese venido, pero bueno, sí, hay muchas cosas por hacer.
Otro día será.
Otro día, claro
Muy
que
pronto.
sí. Y bueno, y no sé, me siento muy bendecida, la verdad, me siento muy bendecida. Gracias,
Sí,
Marco.
yo también, sí. Un tremendo placer. Miles de
Y
gracias.
gracias por existir, por seguir haciendo lo que están haciendo. Todos tenemos una misión que cumplir en este campo astral. Y yo no me puedo ir mucho porque, claro, yo sí que me eduqué en la institución y tengo que seguir bueno, el paradigma científico se supone que es el que más influye, el constructivista también, pero bueno, que todo se construye, pero que sí que es verdad que es parte de la asistencia, lo espiritual, lo energético, está ahí. No,
Todo.
no, no se puede decir que no existe porque sí, está ahí. Y que dedicarle, hay que cuidarlo y dedicarle tiempo y sí, es parte de nuestra asistencia y bueno.
Sí,
Mm.
exactamente. Yeah, yeah. So just to wrap up, I guess what I will say as a summarized interpretation of what Iqjot just said, um, it's all part of our existence, the psychological, the emotional, the scientific. She has been educated through an institution and she has to keep going through the institutions, but it's also part of our existence. And I absolutely have 100% conviction in that it is all part of our existence. It is all part of our reality. Everything has its place. Western allopathic medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Amazonian medicine, Chinese medicine, Korean medicine, it all has its place. And
Exactly.
in English we say all roads lead to Rome. It is all conducive to one outcome when used with ethics, responsibility, and integrity, and in balance and in harmony. When we can use it in that way, it all leads to us living a healthy, joyful, prosperous, unified life on earth. So I completely agree, and I honor your path and respect your path, and yeah,
Thank you.
may it be prosperous for you and blessings to your family.
Thank you, Marga. Yes, definitely. Que sí, gracias. Y que Mark estaba diciendo que sí, que todos tenemos un lugar en esta asistencia, la medicina ayurvédica, la medicina ancestral, la medicina china, pues la medicina terapéutica o sí, que todo lleva hacia el crecimiento personal, el bienestar del ser humano, siempre que se haga con integridad, con conciencia, con responsabilidad, con ética. Por supuesto que sí, y que claro, y que tenemos que estar bien para poder funcionar bien como personas, tenemos que estar bien y no podemos ignorar ninguna parte de nuestra existencia. Ninguna parte puede ser ignorada. Todas son igual de importantes, todas. Todas, 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 todas. El conocimiento, la energía, lo psicológico, lo emocional y lo espiritual. Todo. Todo tiene que estar bien para poder hacer las cosas bien. Exacto. Thanks so much, Mark. Thank you. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Por la
Blessings.